Can you hear us?
I can hear you very well, thank you. Let me turn the volume up just a little. All right. Crap.
You didn't send our test up, did you?
No, I didn't send your test up. My issue is, and I was going to tell the class here this, the issue is, my first morning class this morning, I couldn't get the PowerPoint to work last night. I couldn't get it to work this morning. And we got to doing some digging, and IT people did an update in our building over there. I'm in a separate building, and they did an update in the building, and they've killed my computer. And they're having to go back in and do some changes, both in the classroom and in the offices and stuff. And my computer is acting very unruly, and it's driving me crazy. So I tell you what I'm gonna do. I hate to do this to you all here in Bluefield because you were prepared, but I did not send that test to Beckley. So let's take the test first thing Thursday when we come in. That way I can send it to Beckley and Beckley can be prepared. All right? And we'll start into today's work and we'll test on Tuesday. Again, I apologize. It's been crazy. I was so aggravated last night in class. I was there for 3 hours and we could not get that stupid overhead to work. They come in this morning and worked on it. We thought they had it fixed, but they really didn't have it fixed. It was a trick. So they're working on it now. Hopefully they get my computer and the classroom computer and everything back up online and we can work away from that. So having said that, I promised you all an update on the Terry stops. The Supreme Court made a ruling on these Terry stops and changed the way these Terry stops were viewed. And I promised you all an update on that, and it took me a little while, but I did. And the case is a 2015 case called Rodriguez versus the United States. Come on in. And here is the summary of what happened. Officer Struble, a K-9 officer, stopped Rodriguez for driving on a highway shoulder. It was a violation of Nebraska law. Again, what you have here is a civil infraction, a traffic infraction, right? Now, y'all don't have to write this down. I'm just telling you so y'all can grasp this. Struble attended to everything relating to the stop, including checking the driver's license of Rodriguez and his passengers and issuing a warning. He then sought permission to walk his dog around the vehicle, and Rodriguez refused. Struble detained him until another officer arrived and then retrieved his dog, who alerted on the presence of drugs. The ensuing search revealed methamphetamine. 7 or 8 minutes elapsed from the time Struble issued the warning until the dog alerted. Rodriguez was indicted. He moved to suppress the evidence on the ground that Struble had prolonged his stop without reasonable suspicion. Y'all with me? Struble makes a stop. It's a traffic stop. He has no evidence of any further criminal activity, none.
But the law states that he's allowed to stop him for a reasonable amount of time. And
A reasonable amount of time. But here's where the court has changed that ruling. They said that reasonable stopped when he issued the citation or the warning. The 7 or 8 minutes that elapsed from the time he issued the warning to the time the dog alerted was deemed unreasonable. Do you all see what I'm saying?
Yeah, he done took care of his business with him at that point.
Right, the business was over. And he did not have probable cause to continue that stop. Right? Yes?
Yes.
What if he would have prolonged
then they would have created a little bit of a different argument there, but the argument would have read something more like he deliberately delayed giving me the warning while he searched for more evidence. Again, you know, if Officer Struble had rolled up on this car and the smoke had been coming out the window like Cheech and Chong, you've got probable cause to continue the stop, right? But without something like that, he really didn't have that evidence. Yes, sir. Okay. So without that probable cause, he didn't really have any opportunity to extend that stop. So that's the big change in the Terry stops, is the reasonableness of which they can be detained. You have to have a reason to be able to articulate that suspicion in order for that stop not to be overturned. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So does that mean moving forward, you can't like basically use a K-9 for a civil infraction?
That ain't what that
Well,
means.
you can if,
Without clear probable cause that you think drugs are involved?
well, the question was not the probable cause, the question was the amount of time of delay.
If you got a dog with
this-
you, you'd be
if
fine
this
to walk the
officer
dog.
had been working his K-9 through a parking lot, and the dog had alerted in the parking lot, there was no illegal search, there was no unreasonable delay. The problem comes in is that when an officer stops somebody for a minor infraction and then begins to search for more charges without further probable cause, right?
Right.
You pull over a car leaving the scene of a burglary. You pull that car over because they're driving fast and they seem suspicious and they may be suspects. When you get the car pulled over, the gentleman is driving and he's alone. And in the passenger seat of the front seat of the car, there's a screwdriver, a crowbar, and a small hammer. Is that reasonable suspicion to detain him for further investigation?
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's been a robbery, yes.
I mean, in a robbery, absolutely. So you've got that reasonable suspicion. If you pull him over and you don't see those tools sitting there, and he simply says, "Look, I'm in a hurry. My girlfriend's waiting on me to pick me up, to pick her up. We're going on a date." At that point, do you have reasonable suspicion to continue holding him?
No.
No. So the Terry stop has to be over, and you have to let him go, right? So you have to let him move on. So the deal is not that you can't use a K-9. What the Supreme Court is trying to say is that you can't use the excuse of a traffic infraction or a lesser crime to go fishing for more. And a lot of police officers used to do that. They would pull you over for something minor and then start fishing and see what they could dig out. And they're saying that unreasonable delay is not acceptable. Okay?
I have a question.
And that is Rodriguez versus United States 2015. Any of y'all want to pull it up, you can pull it up on the Supreme Court. I also have the full version on my computer. If you email me, I'll email it to you in its full version. You can read it. But basically, that's the nuts and bolts that happened in 2015. Yes?
You said in that he asked the guy if he could use the K-9 to search his vehicle, and he said no.
Right.
Had the guy said yes, could he detain him at that point and keep searching?
Absolutely, because at that point,
Give him
he's voluntarily waiting. He's not being stopped.
He's
If you
just waived his right at that point.
Say again?
He's waived his rights at that point.
That's right. He's waived his rights at that point. He said, "Yeah, I agree. I'm just hanging out. You go ahead and run the dog when you get a minute." Yeah. So at that point, he would have waived his rights. He would have agreed to what was going on, and the Terry stop would have been legitimate. But because he said no, the stop should have been over. Yes.
I know this might not be a question related to that, but when you say like, Rodriguez versus US, you said that it was a trooper that was involved. Why wouldn't that be against the state? Why is that against the US?
Because they're challenging the Fourth Amendment. They're challenging the way the Fourth Amendment is interpreted. And so when you go in front of the court like that and you're challenging a constitutional amendment, it's going to be the U.S. attorney who goes in to represent.
Okay.
Now, I've got another one for you. This one happened just last week in Richmond, Virginia, and it happens to be just about what we were talking about. The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals rules that a taser can be unconstitutionally excessive force. Posted January the 26th, 2016. The court expressly says it wished to clarify when police may lawfully use tasers. The Richmond, Virginia-based Fourth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled that tasers use may be unconstitutionally excessive force in some circumstances. The ruling says that police officers from a village in Pinehurst, North Carolina are entitled to qualified immunity from a lawsuit by the family of Ronald Armstrong, but nonetheless used unconstitutionally excessive force in the incident that killed them. In other words, what the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals is saying, they were following the policy, they were following what they believed to be the law, so therefore they are immune from the civil prosecution, and they are immune from being fired. However, the policy that the department had for using the tasers was wrong, and the policy, the law governing the use of those tasers was wrong, was unconstitutional for excessive. You want me to read some more? I mean, this just happened. Armstrong was diagnosed as bipolar. He was paranoid schizophrenic and went off his medication shortly before the 2011 incident. His sister convinced him to go to the hospital after watching him poke holes in his skin to let the air out. My man's gone. What is it you said? He checked out. Yeah.
They're out.
A doctor there issued an involuntary commitment order, and Armstrong ran away. Pinehurst police were called. When they learned about the commitment papers, Armstrong wrapped himself around a signpost and refused to leave. Instead of trying to talk him into leaving, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals said 3 police officers tased him 5 times over about 2 minutes. The tasers was the drive-in stun modes. You know, you step back and they go into the skin.
Yeah.
A setting designed to cause pain and therefore create compliance with the police officers. It didn't work. Why didn't it work?
He was off.
Those pain compliance techniques like electricity and like pepper spray do not work oftentimes on severely mentally
Ill.
people, not, I was gonna say mentally handicapped, but that ain't right, but severely mentally ill people, like schizophrenics. They do not respond to pain.
And drug use.
Obviously, if he's poking holes in his skin to let the air out, he's not responding to a lot of pain, right? It didn't work. So the officers and 2 hospital security guards physically removed Armstrong from the signpost, laid him face down on the ground, and cuffed both his arms and his legs. During the struggle, Armstrong complained that he was being choked. Lopez saw officer pull on his collar. After everybody stood up, Lopez saw that Armstrong was unresponsive. When they flipped him over, his skin was blue and he wasn't breathing. He was pronounced dead shortly after arrival at the nearby hospital. Lopez is the sister, by the way. Lopez, representing Armstrong's estate, sued the officers for unconstitutional excessive force, and the Fourth Circuit Court granted summary judgment saying the officers had qualified immunity. In other words, they are saying that yes, what happened to him was wrong and the use of the tasers was wrong, but the officers were following policy, so they are under qualified immunity. Let's take a minute and talk about what that means, qualified immunity. If you as a police officer operate under what's called color of law or statute, and something goes wrong and somebody sues, you are given qualified immunity based on the fact that you were doing what the law said for you to be doing at that time. Now, the law may be wrong, but they can't hold you responsible because you were following the law. That's qualified immunity. Does that make sense to everybody? Does that make sense to everybody in Beckley?
Yes.
Is that qualified immunity just for a criminal charge, or does it cover civil?
Civil too. You can't be sued either. The qualified immunity covers civil and criminal. In this case, these officers, though what they did was viewed as unconstitutionally excessive, they were following their department policy and following state law, which, according to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, was designed unconstitutionally, and they used excessive force, resulting in the death of this gentleman, which is what I've told you. The words less than lethal force is really a misnomer. Stay away from those, stay away from that cliche. Anything in the right situation can be lethal force. Anything.
Well, I mean, to tase someone 5 times in 2 minutes, that's a little excessive in itself.
Well, and here's the other piece, and you all need to know this. When you're dealing with mentally challenged individuals, these people that have severe mental illness, pain compliance don't work, pepper spray don't work, electricity don't work. You have to use some brain power. The answer to sometimes when a carpenter has to drive a nail and the nail won't drive into the wood because the wood's too hard, he gets a bigger hammer. Well, that don't always work in life. Just because the problem won't go away doesn't mean you go get a bigger hammer. Sometimes you have to think about it a little bit, right?
Like your situation with the dog.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta solve a problem in a different way. As a result of this ruling, every major police department in Virginia and North Carolina and West Virginia is looking at their policy on electricity, stun guns, tasers, that type of stuff. And it's my understanding, I don't know if it's gonna happen or not, but it's my understanding that the Virginia Beach Police Department and the Norfolk Police Department are already in the process of taking the tasers away from their officers. They will no longer have electricity at their disposal. Now, I don't know if that's happening or not, but it's my understanding that they're considering it and they're gonna be in the process of taking that away. So that's really gonna change the way police officers do their work according to the Fourth Circuit. And that did just happen. That ruling was handed down January the 26th, 2016. So that's been, what, 2 weeks ago?
Last week.
Last week. So I wanted you all to hear that. We are talking about things in our class that are going on right out of the headlines. We've got to be able to solve those problems. All right. Now, instead of taking a test, let's move on to our next issue that we're going to be talking about, which is technology and policing. Somebody tell me what technology and policing means to you.
That means like using social media accounts, things like that to help you with your.
I thought a lot about technology and policing, and I really hadn't thought much about that. Hold on, I'm going to jot that down at the bottom of my paper. Hold on.
All right, Brad?
That's why we like having.
Nothing we talk about today will be on the test, no. In fact, before we leave here in a little while, I'll kind of review several questions on the test. The test has 20 questions and one bonus.
We are taking it today.
No, we're not. I did not email my test to those folks in Beckley, so they can't take it. They just have to sit and stare at us. We're gonna take it Thursday. And I apologize for that. I know you all were ready, and I take 110% responsibility. I dropped the ball there, and I apologize. But hopefully, I'm gonna get on track, and we're not gonna have this problem anymore. Also, I think I've got the discussion questions fixed in the other classes. I think they're fixed. I think we're ready to go. I'm gonna go double check them whenever I get back from this class and I go back to my office. I'm gonna double check them to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do, and we should be fine. Yeah, I think I've got that problem. I think I've got it straightened out a few minutes ago, and I'm gonna go double check it here in a little bit. I think we should be good to go, so y'all can get on and finish those up. All right, so first one, social media. I hadn't even thought about that. Somebody tell me some other issues, some other things that are going on with technology and policing.
Body cameras.
Body cameras. I like body cameras. What else?
What about using like the GPS on their cell phones, being able to track them?
GPS. All right, what else?
In-car or the mobile data terminals in the vehicle.
Electronic monitoring devices.
Mobile, I can't say mobile today, mobile data terminals.
And what is that?
It's computer, in-car computer.
Oh, okay.
Electronic monitoring devices.
Oh, what are those used for?
Home
Home
confinement.
confinement.
Electronic monitoring device.
License plate readers.
Ooh, tell me about that.
Well, most people are gonna be familiar with that over the DBJ7 shooting.
Over the what?
Over the DBJ7 shooting. When 2 reporters were shot.
Yeah, yeah.
So, it was a few hours post the shooting, they put out a BLM to look out for the suspect, including a description of the suspect's vehicle and a tag number. I think it was up north of Charlottesville. There was a trooper that was sitting stationary on the side of the interstate. And when she got the BOL on her mobile data terminal, or MDT, she input the tag number of the vehicle in question into her license plate reading system. She was one of the few troopers in the state that actually had the system. What the system does does is it will scan every license plate that it comes into contact with. And it'll basically corroborate those scanned numbers to a database of any other, any vehicle they're looking for. All right, so she put that number in her system, and it immediately popped up and said that that vehicle had passed her 2 minutes ago. So it had already been scanning and recording all the license tags, license plates before she put it in there. They remembered, oh, I just saw that 2 minutes ago. That's how they found it.
I wondered if
It's
it was
good.
a database or if it just went by this specific photo. I
What else? I didn't realize that. You shared some information.
didn't know that either.
Say again?
Facial recognition.
Facial recognition software. Say again?
What's that?
Tell her what that is, young man.
Facial recognition software is something that you can use on computers. It monitors cameras, like street cameras, cell phone cameras, anything. It sees if you plug in someone's face, it'll scan their bone structure, their facial structure, anything, and it'll run through the camera feeds and locate their last known position wherever the camera picked them up at.
Right. Basically, that camera can scan a crowd of people for you in a matter of minutes that would take you hours and hours and hours to do. It can do it in a matter of seconds, and pick out specific people. Most of the time, they are probably in the high 90s on accuracy. Every once in a while, it'll say, "Is this the person you're looking for?" and it won't be. But most of the time, they're spot on. Yeah. What else?
Enhanced 911.
Enhanced 911. What's enhanced 911?
All right, so enhanced 911 is twofold. Basically, if you're calling 911 on a landline, it'll show you the address of where that phone is located. However, if you call 911 on a cell phone, it can come under two different phases, phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 will give you a distance and a direction from the cell tower that the phone used. Phase 2 will actually give you a GPS location of the phone itself. Phase 2 is the new part of it. It doesn't exist everywhere yet, but I think that's so E911 is a huge.
Yes. Yes, it gives us the opportunity to see what's going on. So you all have a good idea about a lot of technology in policing. You have a good idea about where a lot of this technology is coming from, what it's used for, and what it does. Now let's take just a minute and talk for just a few minutes about what criminal justice looked like, what police work looked like before 9/11 versus after 9/11. Did we have a lot of the technology before 9/11 that we've got today?
No.
No. Police
No,
work
it wasn't even
before 9/11, and I've talked about this in several other classes. Police work before then was really done in silos. Do y'all know what I'm talking about in silos? Silos, each department was its own silo, and they didn't share what went on with other departments. They kept everything in-house, right in their own tall silo. And they didn't communicate, and they didn't share information, and they didn't do a lot. And after 9/11, when we sat back and we looked at what goes on during the 9/11 crisis in New York and what is going to happen with police work, suddenly it becomes obvious to everybody that police work is no longer just a local issue. It's no longer just a regional issue. It's no longer a state issue. It's no longer even a national issue. Police work becomes a worldwide effort. One of the lessons that France learned, and they learned it at a very expensive price, is that they weren't necessarily on board with sharing all of the information they had and acting on their terrorist information. And as a result, they had a large-scale shooting over there. Has it been 6 months yet? All those people died?
No, it's in November.
4 or 5 months. And so France learns a very powerful lesson, one very similar to what we learned on 9/11, and that now they have to become engaged and they have to become involved in their information sharing, and they have to get into this. So as a result of police work coming out of its silos and becoming integrated with each other, not only local law enforcement and state law enforcement, but also federal law enforcement coming together, we began to create a lot of technology. Now, the best part about all of this, and what puts America way ahead, head and shoulders in front of everybody else, is we are able to piggyback off of one of the greatest militaries in the world. Our militaries in different areas already had a lot of this technology. They were already using a lot of this technology. They were already doing a lot of these things. We simply had to take these advancements and move them from the military field into the civilian world and kind of marry them up. So what are some of the struggles we've had taking a lot of this new computerized technology-based information and moving it into a civilian style of work, if you will, so that we can gather this data and use this technology as civilians? What are some of their pitfalls? There's a real
Constitution been our biggest hurdle.
Say again?
Constitution's been your biggest hurdle, violating the public's rights.
And how did we do? How do they say they did that?
Well, they done that with the Patriot Act.
Well,
originally.
But even so, what particularly did NSA do that everybody went to screaming foul?
They created Homeland Security and started gathering everybody's data.
Right.
Everybody's phone records, everybody's email records, everything.
Correct. That's where I wanted to go. They started data mining, which was learned from our United States military from overseas. We data mined. We gathered a ton of data on everybody that we were engaged with, friends and foes alike, apparently. And they began to data mine U.S. citizens. And so there have become some abuses and some overreaches of power. So what we have to look at, and what we want to look at, is what we're trying to do with our technology-based policing is make policing more effective and safer. We want to achieve two goals with our technology-based policing. The first thing is we want to be very effective. We want to reduce crime. The second thing we want to do with our intelligence, with our technology-based policing, is we want to make our police officers safe. We want to make the people who do this job as safe as possible. And on the counter side of that, we have to balance those needs, those wants, with the civil liberties of the people in our who is entrusting us to take care of them and to enforce the laws, right?
Well, it basically comes down to communication. That's your main key right there.
Tell me more.
Well, I mean, you have to be able to communicate with each other. You have to know what you're talking about, and people have to understand what's going on. I mean, when it comes to communication to average citizens, some of these people have no idea what they're talking about. It has to be spelled out in layman's terms in our communications.
I will agree with that. I will agree that there needs to be some education and there needs to be some upfront presentation about what it is that we as a collective group are trying to do.
I mean, I understand, there is stuff you have to keep secretive, but don't keep everybody in the dark. If you want this to work, you have to communicate.
And tell me about what method of communication do you feel like that they need to do or to put out there in order to get public buy-in?
You mean like on TV, things like that with
it's entirely up to you.
Public announcements,
right.
Or
if we are a police department and we're going to do some data mining, we suspect that we have a gang, the Bloods, have come into our jurisdiction, and they come in a big way. And we're going to do some data mining because we are committed to identifying all of these Blood members, and we are committed to knowing who they are, knowing where they are, knowing what they do. We're going to data mine all of the data. We're going to intercept these phone calls, these emails. We're going to identify them. We're going to locate them, and then we're going to proactively try to intercept their criminal enterprise. How are we going to communicate that to our public without tipping our hand?
You really can.
I don't know. I just don't.
He says maybe you can't. Any other ideas?
I don't. There's part of me that says, okay, yeah, they don't need to be secretive, but then there's the other part of me that says, if you are going to make an announcement or something, that could cause chaos. That could cause people to be a hero, or, you know, if they see somebody that they think is a blood, you know, somebody may try and be all big and bad and cause a lot of people to get hurt, or.
Well, but that's the point that I want to point out to you, and that was the question I wanted to pose to you to try to get you to think about is that I agree. What I'm basically asking you to do here is I'm asking you to weigh the probative value of what we do as a police agency against the freedoms that we enjoy in this country, and at what point do we as a society, do we as a police agency say we're going to trade this freedom for this security?
Well, I mean, the bottom line is there's ways they've done that same job for years without mining that data, you know, and collecting all that data from everybody, even innocent people. So, you know, you can't incriminate innocent people just to get the few criminals that are out there.
Well, that's interesting. So if I'm hearing what you're telling me right, is that what we've got to do as a police agency is we've got to come up with better ways to use our technology so that we don't trample on these rights and we stay effective. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes.
All right, I like it. I like it. So do we still have to tell the community everything that we're doing?
No.
No.
All right. I like it. I'm getting you all to think. I like this kind of stuff. I like that we're going to have these conversations about it's important that we stay effective, but it's also important that we acknowledge that we live in one of the greatest countries in the world, and it's not always necessary to give up a freedom to attain security. We've got this problem solved outside the box, which is really good. So
Well, our government has a habit of putting people in fear to take away, you know, their liberties.
Yeah, you know, I think that we politicians have long since lost sight of what it is to serve, and once they get in, they don't want to leave. They want to stay, and they'll do anything to stay, and they'll say anything to stay, and they'll say anything to get reelected, and that includes trying to scare the general public. I do agree with that, and I think that both parties are guilty of it. I think that both parties are guilty of getting into a government job like that and wanting to stay far too long, and they trade off any moral values that they had in the beginning in order to keep that job and stay there and stay in that cushy spot, rather than serve a reasonable amount of time and move on and let somebody else with fresh ideas come in. So, you know, what the answer to that is, politicians have to work that out, but I don't doubt that you're not on the right track. So I want to talk about a couple of the first pieces of technology that we kicked off in police work that we've used. That one of them is an old standard. We've used it for a long, long time, and it does an excellent job. And the other one is fairly new. And I want us to talk a little bit about those, and then that will be what we will use for your assignments for Thursday. I want you all to be able to come back in and tell me a little bit more about these two situations and hand in your homework with those after we take the test. The first one I want to talk to you about is NCIC. National Crime Information Center, NCIC. NCIC's been around a while. It was one of the first modernized pieces of equipment, of data that we had as far as police work goes. It is where all of the fingerprints are stored. That's where all of our fingerprint database is stored. They also have a lot of other information in the NCIC. There is a terminal that connects directly to NCIC in almost every police department in this country. Bluefield, West Virginia, Bluefield, Virginia, Mercer County Sheriff's Office, Princeton PD. All of them have a terminal that links directly into NCIC. They have that access. Now, because this system is a national system, and because it would be easy for somebody to break into a police department and get onto a computer and get into NCIC, there are a lot of physical responsibilities with having an NCIC terminal in your police department. First of all, it has to be behind a locked door. It cannot be, it cannot be to where general people, even general employees, have access to it. It has to be behind a locked door with restricted access. Only people with proper training and clearance can get on that computer and use that computer to access NCIC. If you have not been trained and you have not been cleared to use that computer, you cannot use it. And they have passwords and safety mechanisms in there so that you can't just sit down and start typing. Each state is responsible for monitoring the compliance with the NCIC rules of the federal government. The state police typically take care of that. In Virginia, the state police have one whole department who does nothing but NCIC compliance. They travel and make sure that your terminals are right, make sure that the people who are using the terminals have been trained and are legal to use that terminal, and they also make sure of the physical barriers that you have. And if your physical barriers are not suitable, they will tell you, you're gonna have to fix this, this can't happen. I worked at a police department one time where they had the terminal behind a metal door in a large room behind a steel door. But there was still access being granted to too many people who were not trained and who did not have business to have access to that computer. So the state police said, we're not satisfied with this anymore. There are too many people behind this steel door. You're going to have to build another partition behind the steel door to separate your computer from these people that are working behind the steel door. So we had to build another partition with another steel door, smaller door that locked, so that it limited the number of people who were allowed in and around that computer. So that was the physical barriers. And it's the state police job to make sure that those units are in compliance. Why is this such a big deal? If there were a computer hacker who was able to hack into NCIC or able to get into one of the terminals and put something into that system, police work in the United States would grind to a screaming halt. It would all stop. Yes?
I have a question. So when, people get put into witness protection and stuff, does somebody go in and, change their fingerprint, the name of in that?
No.
You know what I mean?
No, because as it is, there is no way for organized crime or anybody else to gain access to NCIC.
Okay. I just didn't know if FBI could do it or.
Well, the FBI monitors, the NCIC is part of the FBI headquarters, and so ultimately they're over it.
Yeah.
And so they can do what they want to do on that end, but typically,
I'm just
the
thinking
public can't get to NCIC.
I was just thinking if somebody goes into witness protection and then wherever they go, they get in trouble and.
Oh, they'll pop up. Yeah,
it'll
they'll pop
come up
up.
their old identity or their new identity?
Well, the fingerprints will pop up and then it just depends on whether the FBI's gone in and changed that or
Okay.
not. But it's gonna flag somebody in the FBI so that they know, one of my witness protection people just got arrested. I gotta go.
Yeah, okay.
So it
I
will
was-
flag them and that's, so, NCIC is one of our oldest, it's one of our most reliable. It gives us information on stolen guns, stolen cars, stolen, motorcycles, wanted people, wanted vehicles, warrants. If you get pulled over, I know y'all have watched Cops and you've seen this guy get pulled over and he's like, oh, you got warrants on you from, he gets pulled over in North Carolina. Oh, well, you got warrants on you from Massachusetts, right? The guy's like, no, I ain't got no warrants on me from Massachusetts. No, it ain't me. Yeah, sure it is. It's you. NCIC is how that officer knows instantly that he's got warrants on him from another state or from another part of the country. And so they're able to lock him up on those warrants until the other state's able to come and get him. NCIC is how that information is exchanged. I want you all to tell me some more about NCIC next week. Yes?
If that's something within the department, does that mean a lot of times dispatch has access to it? 'Cause
Absolutely. 90% of the time, your dispatchers are going to be the people who operate NCIC. Now, having said that, he brought up an interesting point. NCIC in the state of Virginia has two terminals. They have a input terminal and a read-only terminal. The training for those two are different. Okay? To be an input terminal, which is a dispatcher behind that locked door, you typically have to have quite a bit more training. It's usually a 40-hour week. To be a read-only terminal, I think the training is 2 or 3 days. With the technology that they're putting in police cars now, what did you call it? MDT. I call it a laptop, but the correct term is MDT. With that MDT in these police cars now, the state troopers are having to have the 2-day read-only because they are now capable of running your tag sitting right in their cruiser. They don't have to call dispatch. They can type your tag up on that same network and pull it up, right? They know, they can pull up your registration, they know whether it's valid, they can see your name, they can get your social security number, they can then run your driver's license number based off off that and find out everything about you right there in their car. The key to that is that mobile unit has to be secured just like that unit at VSIM, back at the office. The car has to stay locked. You can't just put anybody in the car and leave them. You have to be able to secure that unit when you get out of the car. I mean, there's certain things that have to happen with the security of that vehicle, even though it's a read-only unit, right? The state trooper, he can't data input nothing, but he can pull it up and read it. That's a read-only unit, right? So, but you're right. Most of the time it is a dispatcher. Yes.
How about one more,
It'll come back to you when it does. Holler at me. Any other questions? I started my career at 19 years old as a dispatcher. I was VSIN trained. I could do all that stuff. I could make it happen. It's been so long, I've forgotten a lot of it, but I know that the training was a monster. It was a monster to be able to do that. Yes?
I remember what it was, if all of that could pop up in most of the cruisers, then why exactly are they wanting to see your license and registration and insurance? I mean, what is the point of seeing a paper copy if you have it digitally right there?
You have an opportunity to make several decisions. I've seen people pull out the wrong ID. I've seen people pull out fake IDs. At a stop like that, you have to be able to verify what he has on computer.
Yeah.
And what you're doing basically for providing him paper copy is verifying what his electronic data is.
Plus, he's just running the license plate, it might not necessarily be
Your
the
vehicle.
person who owns
Right,
the
yeah,
car.
but just because it pops up that it's registered to me, I may let Mr. Dillo borrow my car.
Or your twin brother, who looks just like you, who could be
Boy,
a felon.
I'm telling y'all, that'd be something if I had a twin, right? That'd be something. But I get what you're saying. Yes, I get what you're saying. I'm just kind of a little humor, but yeah. So what basically they want you to do is provide the electronic information that they've got.
That makes sense.
But you give people a lot of latitude, and you'd be surprised how stupid people are. You know, you pull them over, and as a trooper, as a deputy, as a town officer, most of the time you don't ask a question on a traffic stop that you don't already know the answer to. You know? And people will still tell you a lie knowing that you already know the answer to that question. Oh, sir, what's your name? My name's Joe Smith. Well, my computer says your name's Larry. Joe, now who are you? Giving false information to a police officer, and down the road they go, and the stop just gets worse from there. You see what I'm saying? So it is an opportunity to verify. Questions before I move on to the next one? This next one's my favorite. This next one's fairly new. This next one is something that's not been around too long. It's in a lot of major departments, but I like it because it's proactive. It's called CompStat. Those of you who had me in class last semester, Ms. Ridley, when we were in criminology, we did some talking about CompStat, but we didn't go too deep. CompStat is a computer system that gathers all this data on everything that goes on in your jurisdiction. It gathers all the electronic data. It mines for data throughout your department. Every report that's submitted, every arrest that's made, every call that's answered, it all comes into CompStat. CompStat gobbles it up, just like a big garbage truck. It reaches out and pulls all this information in. It pulls it in from each one of your in-car units. It pulls it in from your dispatch center. It pulls it in from when you hit send to send your electronic incident report to your supervisor. It pulls in all of that data from the department, all of it. Every arrest, every traffic stop, every ticket wrote, every arrest made, every felony warrant served, every call answered, it pulls it all in. And then it prints out this nice big map of your jurisdiction, and it says, in the last 7 days, this is what your jurisdiction looked like. Bam, 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 bam. It says you had 14 calls in this neighborhood, you had 7 arrests in this neighborhood, you had shots fired over here, you had this happen over here, and it puts it right all down in front of you. So that your supervisors can look at that information and better plan how they're going to deploy their police resources in order to reduce crime. CompStat is one of the most proactive tools that has come along, and it came along about the time of 9/11, but after 9/11, CompStat exploded because CompStat is effective in a little town like Bluefield, in a bigger town like Beckley, in a pretty good sized city like Charleston, and even in a big metropolitan area like New York, where it's just extremely famous. CompStat.
That's where it started at, was New York.
That's where it started at, was New York. It does an excellent job. So I would like for you all to visit with me over the course of the next 2 days and come back and tell me some of the intricacies of CompStat. Questions about CompStat?
Say comp.
Yeah, COMP, CompStat. I want to know where the idea from CompStat came from. I want to know if it was a civilian idea or a military piggyback. Now, I want to throw out a couple other things at you before we wrap up class, and you don't have to write on these. I want to know about NCIC and CompStat for Thursday. But here's some other things that we're going to talk about that I want to get you thinking about. One of the biggest tools they've used to make police work safer is robots. Even the most rudimentary robots do a huge job in making police work safer. The 2 terrorists out on the West Coast in San Bernardino, the police was afraid that somebody was still alive in that vehicle when they shot him in the road, and 2, that they had booby-trapped that vehicle and there were bombs in it. And instead of sending an officer up there to check it out, instead of doing all those things, they back up, they set up a perimeter, and they send this real rudimentary little robot with tracks on it in. And it's got a camera on it. And they're able to roll right up to the vehicle, and they're able to raise up and look all in the vehicle and turn and look and see what's going on and identify that, yes, everybody in the vehicle is dead, and no, there doesn't appear to be any booby traps. we were able to take officers out of harm's way and put a piece of machinery in there and make that happen. Excellent, excellent police work. That's how you move police officers into safety and use equipment to do the dangerous work. Yes?
Don't they use robots in corrections too, like the inmates?
They used to, and maybe some of the jurisdictions do, but I have not ever seen it. Most of the inmate feeding is done by other inmates. And as long as, and not to say that it can't happen, but until the mentality of corrections changes, there probably won't be much technology going into corrections, because most lawmakers do not want to spend any money to house an inmate. They want him in prison, they want him out of the way, they just don't want to spend any money to keep him there. Does that make sense? So they're not willing to do a whole lot with technology there. What their answer to all that is just use the inmates, make the inmates feed the other inmates, and that's typically what happens. Along with those robots, the next big controversial issue, and we're going to talk about them on Thursday and talk about the controversies that they bring to the table and the new laws that are being created because of them, is drones. Domestic drones have really changed the face of police work and civilian life. I did not have any idea how many people own drones. Does anybody in here own a drone? Yeah, so you can see, there's drones, there are even a couple of people in our class that have drones. Drones are extremely popular and growing in popularity all the time.
Have you seen the new one that can support the payload of a human?
No.
So you could literally sit on it and fly yourself around.
Yeah, that'd be dangerous.
Yeah, that's very.
I guess there are a lot of laws changing.
Yeah.
Something that I found out was neat about drones when I got one is, that you're required by law to, at least in the state, I don't know about others, but in West Virginia, you're required by law to, report that serial number and fill out a little claim thing for it.
I think that's when they're above a certain weight.
That just happened. No, it just,
I didn't have to do it because mine was under 5 pounds.
okay, they just created a law, federal law, it's federal, I think, in every state. If your drone meets certain size requirements,
Any over 9 ounces
What
has
is
to
it?
be registered with the FFA.
right, have to be registered with the FFA.
He said it was over
All right, be
70
careful.
ounces, is that what he said?
So,
Yes, 9 ounces.
9 ounces.
Cause that's when you start holding material.
All right. Here's another piece of information that I find exceptionally interesting that we're going to research a little bit that I like. We'll probably next week, but they now have a gunshot direction system. Gunshot direction system. What happens is they put up a certain number of microphones in a community on the side of buildings. A gunshot goes off, those microphones triangulate that noise, and they can tell you within just a few feet of where the gunshot came from. So that
That's
the police
military technology.
so that the police officer can respond to that area and go right to the place where it happened and become more effective with trying to apprehend the person with the gunshot, that shot the gun. I think that system is just outstanding.
And you said it's called gunshot direction?
System.
We've been using that in military trucks for about 10 years.
Yeah, so see, there's another piece of military piggyback that we're using in civilian world, and it's an excellent piece of technology, lifesaver. E-tickets and in-car information, we talked about that earlier. At some point, tickets are going to become paperless. They will be electronic. And they're already going that way in West Virginia, because now no longer do you have to sign the ticket. If you refuse to sign, they still just turn the ticket in and give you your copy and you roll on. In Virginia, if you refuse to sign, you're going to jail.
That's usually do speed limit in Virginia.
Yeah. If you are in Virginia and you refuse to sign a Virginia uniform summons, you will go to jail. Yes, ma'am.
Their department's back up.
Ain't that still like a form of arrest?
It is, actually, yes. Yes. What happens is that when you get pulled over to get a ticket like that, you are basically under arrest and you are released on your signature. on your own recognizance with your signature. The state of West Virginia, for whatever reason, has decided that they don't care whether you sign the summons or not, you're released upon receipt of that summons, right? Signature or not. Virginia has not gone that far. Virginia says you still gotta sign it, and if you don't sign it, you're going before the magistrate to explain why you didn't sign it.
Pros and cons.
There are pros and cons to both. I don't know that I don't know where I come down on the issue. I think there's a formality to your signature. If I hand you a summons and say, this is a Virginia uniform summons for speeding, you're going 65 and 55, signing this summons is not an admission to guilt, simply states you agree to appear on the date and time in the court noted above. You can plead guilty, you can plead innocent, you can hire a lawyer if you wish, here's a phone number if you want to hire a lawyer. Sign right here, again, signing this summons is not an admission to guilt. I've explained to you 3 times, signing this summons is not an admission to guilt. Y'all are impressed I remembered all that, right? Because that's just the way I used to read it to them. So, signing that summons is not an admission to guilt. I've explained it to you 2 or 3 times. Simply states means you agree to appear in court on the date and time shown above, right? I think there's something official about that signature that creates an idea in people's minds. I got to go to court because I signed that, right? And
It's a contract.
What's that?
It's a contract.
Right, basically.
At that point.
There's something about that signature. And when you don't sign it, I think there's an air of whatever to it. You know what I mean? And so I don't know where I come down on it, because at the same time I see the two pieces of that. I also think that a trooper runs upon a guy, he pulls him over for going 65 and a 55, he writes him a ticket for 10 over, and the guy says, I ain't signing that. Well, now, instead of getting back out there and doing more radar and doing more, he's got to jerk this guy out of the car, cuff him up, and take him to a magistrate, and go through all this paperwork, and then go back out. And he's a lot of downtime simply because the guy didn't sign a piece of paper. So I don't know where I come down on this argument, but I see it. You know, I can kind of see both sides. But at the same time, I think that what we're going to is some type of paperless ticket where the officer will hand you a tablet.
Like a FedEx, that's what I was thinking.
Kind of like, yeah, like a handheld. It would be kind of like a tablet, and he'll say, this is your ticket. You need to sign here. Signing is not an admission to guilt, and you e-sign it, and in 3 days you get a ticket in the mail. You know, you get a paper copy saying, hey, don't forget to come to court on blah, blah, blah in the mail.
Which
right?
for the most part you get anyways,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, most of it. I see that coming in the very near future with our technology. I really do. And the last thing we're going to talk about, and somebody in Beckley mentioned it, was GPS. And inside that GPS, I want us to talk about, before we quit, at some point, the Star Chase Pursuit Management System. Star Chase Pursuit Management System. Anybody got any idea about what that is?
It's kind of like the Amber Alert system, ain't it?
It's close, but what happens is if you are in a situation where you find yourself in a pursuit with a vehicle, your vehicle launches a small probe that attaches to the suspect vehicle. You then back off. That suspect vehicle now has a GPS lodged in it, and you can monitor where that vehicle goes and what it does from a safe distance.
Yes, good.
You don't have to chase, you don't have to turn on your blue lights, you just hang back and watch. Now, at the other end of that, you're going to have to do some investigating, right?
Yeah.
But it does reduce the amount of danger to the general public on the road from high-speed police pursuits.
And the police officer too.
Yes, I agree with that, but there's a certain amount of danger that comes with saying, you know, I swear to be a police officer to investigate.
Yeah.
What we want to do is minimize the danger to our public as we're in these pursuits. Because most of the time, the people who wipe out, people who wreck, are going to be the people who are trying to run from the police. Because police officers have to go through an extensive EVOC training. You know what that is? Emergency Vehicle Operations Course. And it's an extensive little training, and most of the time your police officers are pretty good drivers. However, having said that, one of the most dangerous weapons you have as a police officer is your automobile. All right, questions, comments, observations? What do y'all think about technology and policing?
It's got pros and cons both.
so.
Be very,
I'm with you.
That's
but you
I
always
like it.
have your bad apples too, that'll use it for, they
You
shouldn't.
will have people that will
But
try to.
that's
abuse it,
anything
there's
though,
no doubt.
really.
I'm
Technique.
proud of you all, you've done good. Again, I apologize for my unpreparedness for sending that test to you all, and definitely, I will get it straightened out. Hopefully, they got my computer straightened out, we will get this thing on the road. I do appreciate your all's patience. What?
For homework, you just want more on this.
Yes, I want you to take on UCIC and talk stuff. Knock those two out, we'll talk about the others as we move along. Thank y'all. Yeah, I figured there's some people in here. You have one for that.
Uh-oh, there it goes.
Go home from after that.
I read about it and it said you about it comes for $165.
I just bought the $65 one, and then I just found it online, but you need that code to log in. So you have to log into that Pearson, and then you can get the account. It was confusing, so I.
Here's.
That.
You have to go look into like office one. Yeah, we got it fixed or.
Well, that lapse like almost impossible if you don't
Yeah,
get
it
that
is.
out. Yeah.
Got 10 hours. I don't know for an accident.
I mean, something else they credit into it.
So get you a code, was that? Oh,
It's
yeah.
kind of just, it kind of like made like some kind of like electronic like
Yeah, I
lab
mean, that's
thing.
what it is.
And then when I just signed into Pearson, I just will search PAL, and then it'll come up in the search, but you have to be signed in.
So you need those.
Like I said, if we can get a meeting with the,
Trying to find PAL website.
and just sit down, group meeting and tell them, like, hey,
Started.
Yeah.
this is ridiculous.
So then I searched for it on Google and I found it, it's been at work when I signed in, so.
Should we go,
Do you have an actual?
you think we should go, just be like, hope we want to set up a meeting
Fire,
for,
like,
No,
mail?
Yeah, you can talk to them about it and see,
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know what they'll say.
No, actually, I'm not.
Who's the,
I have an organization meeting too.
good.
Forever Friends Rescue.
I'll put that in there.
You all through?
I have puppy dog friends. Well, see, that's the group that I said I'd be vice president because my friend was the president and then she decided she wasn't gonna do it, so now I'm the president.
You take that arm easy and get it healed up, okay? Yeah,
That's how far down I went. The ER doctor goes, it's probably the worst dislocation I've ever seen.
It looks like to me it would be bad. You
Do
need
you
to take
need
it
a ride
easy.
home?
I was gonna walk.
I was supposed to get surgery after the second time I done it, but the hospital wouldn't send me, my x-rays to the specialist, so the insurance company wouldn't pay for a MRI.
Right.
So I just kinda went and did like my own physical therapy, like looked up into and worked on and everything, and built up my strength pretty well.
Well, I'm gonna go up there and.
Then I just did
That's
this,
probably
so
where
it's
I'm
like I
headed.
definitely need
You're
surgery
live
this
right
time.
Yeah, you're gonna have to,
I'm
maybe
probably
you
gonna
wait
grab
till
some
someone has it
right
done.
before too.
My advice to you is stay off the snowboards.
Oh,
It's
yeah, I
just,
haven't even
it's
touched
just,
it
I
yet.
was actually hitting that jump almost all day. It's just I went for a little bit more speed this
I
time,
decided
and
I
it
probably
absolutely
need
launched
to
me. Like,
stop drinking
I've always said I was a good 6 feet off the ground,
He
and I
pushes-
landed it, but I landed on my head, and it was a little icy, so it kicked out,
And I already
And then you
am,
went.
I
and
touch him.
straight down like that.
I got
Yeah.
myself
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Got myself here. Busted my lip a little bit right
I'm
there.
kinda used to it now.
Just anger. Oh my God, I've never felt so much anger in my life.
And what about,
I told him, I said, you're gonna have
When's
to
this
sometimes
pass? Just
change.
talk
I said,
that
I'm gonna
tomorrow.
kill you.
No worries.
I said, we are not
You're
gonna go
not, you're
on.
not that far behind. We'll get you a little bit. I'm gonna let you.
Here's Hank, throw it all day.
That was, I mean, that, and that's the funny thing is like I was fine and I just told him, I'm like, you're drunk, I'm not gonna talk about this. And he just kept at me.
I'm sorry, I didn't do it when you had your backpack open.
Ain't no big deal. I don't mind. Do you like class?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's very informative. This tech was good too. James Lee knew a lot about that, that was new to me, license plate scanner.
Yeah, he's done an internship where he rides with the state police.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, so he's got a lot of inside current knowledge about what actually is in his trooper car.